Rain hit the glass walls of the boardroom like soft whispers of a storm that refused to be ignored. Everyone had left hours ago, but Ethan Cole, the youngest self-made CEO in New York, sat alone, fingers clenched on a folder. He wasn't supposed to care, but he did. Earlier that day, his car had broken down on the corner of a quiet alley of all places, outside a fading bookstore with a flickering sign, whispering pages. He was about to call his driver when he saw her, a girl with a ponytail, oversized glasses and dust on her jeans, was arguing with a man outside. Her voice cracked as she said, "I just need 2 more days, please." Her hands trembled as she clutched a paper bag barely filled with bread and canned soup. The man shoved her away and left. She stood frozen, blinking back tears. Like it wasn't the first time the world had told her she didn't belong. Ethan didn't mean to speak, but something pulled at him. "Is everything okay?" She turned slowly, startled. "Sorry, I didn't see you there." "Yes, I'm fine." A lie wrapped in politeness. She hugged the bag closer to her chest. He noticed the bookstore behind her had no customers. No warmth, no light, just books older than she probably was. "You work here?" he asked. She nodded. "Only during the week. On weekends, I clean houses." Something in her voice, soft, quiet, yet heavy, like she carried stories no one had read. That bookstore wasn't just her job. It was her shelter. Maybe even her last anchor to a world that hadn't been kind. Later, Ethan found himself sitting in his sleek office, unable to concentrate. Her voice echoed in his head. "Only during the week. On weekends, I clean houses." Why couldn't he stop thinking about her? He searched the security footage from that alley. He didn't know why. Maybe he wanted a name. Maybe he wanted a reason. Her name was Lena Rivers. No address. No social media. No family listed. Just a library volunteer. History: a closed file from a group home in Ohio and a recent eviction notice. She didn't even know someone like him existed. But the next day, he went back. She was mopping the wooden floor when he walked in. Her eyes widened, not because she recognized him as the famous tech CEO, but because, ... No one ever came back. "You forgot your umbrella," he lied, holding out an umbrella he had just bought across the street. Her lips curled slightly. "I don't own an umbrella." "I know," he replied. "That's why I got you one." Her brows furrowed. She didn't trust kindness. Not anymore. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan smiled faintly. "'Cause yesterday, you looked like you hadn't been asked how you're doing in a long time." For the first time in years, Lena didn't know how to respond. Her mouth parted, but nothing came out. And somehow, the silence between them spoke louder than any words. He visited again and again, always with an excuse. A book recommendation, a coffee, an offer to fix the heater. And slowly, the girl who had learned to keep everyone out started, leaving the door unlocked before he arrived. But what Ethan didn't know was that Lena had a secret buried deeper than the hunger, deeper than the loneliness, something she couldn't tell him, because once before someone said they cared, and they ended up dead. 2 weeks had passed, and Ethan still didn't know why he kept showing up at the bookstore. It made no sense. A man who built empires with his mind was suddenly acting like a boy, waiting to hear a girl laugh. Just once more, Lena had changed, too. She smiled now, just a little, but it was the kind of smile that looked like it hadn't been used in years. One evening, as he helped her sort through old book donations, he noticed a small scar near her wrist. He didn't ask, but he noticed. "You read a lot?" he asked, holding up a worn-out copy of Wuthering Heights. She nodded, placing it gently on the shelf. Only books where someone's heart breaks and still survives. There was something so soft yet shattered in her words. Ethan couldn't respond. Not right away. Instead, he watched her brush a strand of hair behind her ear. Her eyes tired but calm like a sea after a storm that hasn't quite settled. That night, Lena sat in her small, dark room, barely large enough to fit a bed and a table. She looked at the umbrella he had given her, still resting by the window. She didn't believe in miracles. Not after what happened. But for some reason, she hadn't returned the umbrella either. Then her phone buzzed. No number. Just a message. You think hiding in New York keeps you safe. Her breath caught in her throat, her hands shook. She stared at the words like they could burn her eyes. She deleted the message. But it didn't stop the panic crawling up her spine. The past wasn't finished with her. The next morning, Ethan found her outside the store early. She hadn't gone home. Her eyes looked heavier, and there was a nervous twitch in her fingers. He offered her a warm drink. Rough night. She forced a smile. Something like that. You don't talk about yourself much, he said softly. But I want to listen. Whenever you're ready. She looked at him like she wanted to believe him, but fear had built walls too thick. Some stories are better left unread. He nodded slowly. And some hearts are just waiting for the right person to read between the lines. Her eyes welled up, but she blinked fast. She couldn't cry. Not in front of him, not when he didn't. Know the truth, because the man who ruined her life was still out there, and if Ethan ever found out who he was, he'd never forgive her. Later that day, Lena left the store early. Ethan didn't stop her. He felt she needed space. But after she left, a man in a brown coat walked in. Mid-40s, clean-shaven, looked around as if checking security cameras. Then he placed a sealed envelope on the counter. For the girl who works here, he told the old shopkeeper. Tell her, the past says hello. And he walked out. When Lena returned that evening and saw the envelope, her hands froze. Her lips trembled. She didn't open it. She knew exactly who it was from, and she knew something else now. Ethan. Cole might be the most powerful man in New York, but no amount of power could protect him. If he ever found out that she was married once and her husband never died. He disappeared. Ethan had never been the type to chase feelings. But something about Lena pulled him in like gravity. She didn't ask for anything, didn't try to impress, yet he found himself rerouting meetings, ignoring calls, just to pass by that creaky bookstore and hear her voice. But that night, when he messaged her and got no reply, something felt off. Lena sat in her room, clutching the envelope, heart pounding so loud it echoed through her ribs. She hadn't seen his handwriting in years, slanted, sharp, and haunting. Her hands trembled as she finally tore it open. Inside was a photo. Her, Ethan, laughing outside the bookstore. A perfect candid, and beneath it, a note in red ink. You smile better with me. Remember that? Her vision blurred. She knew what this meant. He had found her again. She shoved the photo back inside the envelope and buried it beneath old books. But fear had already crawled inside her skin. She couldn't run again. Not when she was finally beginning to feel something close to home. The next day, she avoided Ethan, closed the shop early, turned off her phone. But Ethan wasn't a man who gave up easily. He went to her place, a small apartment above a laundromat, knocked. No answer. He waited. 30 minutes later, the door opened a crack. She peeked through, her face pale. Are you okay? He asked, his voice softer than she expected. I just needed rest. You're lying, he said gently. I can feel it. She looked down. Please don't ask me today. His chest tightened, but he respected her silence. Fine. But I'm not leaving. I'll wait out here all night if I have to. And he did. Until rain started pouring again, and she finally opened the door wider. You'll catch a cold, then let me in. She hesitated, then stepped aside. Inside, he noticed how little she had. One chair. One lamp. No decorations. Just a girl surviving, not living. He placed his jacket on the back of her chair and said nothing. Neither did she. Minutes passed before she whispered, "I was married." Ethan's breath caught. She didn't look at him. "I was 17. It wasn't love. It was survival. I was in foster care. He promised me food. Safety. But he lied. Ethan stayed still. He hurt me. And when I ran, I thought he was gone. But now, ... he's watching again." There was a silence so thick it could break. Then Ethan leaned forward. "You're not alone anymore, Lena." Finally looked up, tears clinging to her lashes. "If he finds out I'm with you, he'll try to hurt you too." A faint smile curled Ethan's lips. "Then he should know. I'm not the kind of man you hurt easily." But Lena didn't smile back, because she didn't know ... Ethan had secrets to ... secrets about a night. 5 years ago, a night he remembered, only in fragments, and one face he could never forget. A man with a jagged scar on his right cheek ... the same man who had just re-entered her life. Ethan couldn't sleep. He kept replaying Lena's words in his mind. "He hurt me." Now he's watching again. There was something dark in her voice, like she'd lived years hiding in shadows. Like pain was something she'd folded and stored neatly inside herself, just to survive. But that wasn't what haunted Ethan the most. It was the scar. The one she hadn't mentioned, but he had seen it. Years ago, on a different man, in a different city. During the worst night of his life, back then, Ethan wasn't a billionaire. He was just a young coder, struggling to launch his first tech startup. One night, after leaving a late pitch meeting, he was mugged in a parking garage. 2 men, one held him down. The other, with the scar, laughed as he kicked him over and over. They took his laptop, everything. That night changed everything. He never forgot the scar. Sharp and curved across the man's cheek like a question mark, carved by fate. Now that face was circling back, connected to her. He needed answers. The next morning, Lena didn't show up at the bookstore. Ethan called. No response. He drove to her place. The door was slightly open. His pulse spiked inside. The apartment was quiet, but not empty. On the table sat a burner phone, and a message scratched on the wall mirror in red lipstick. "I told you to stay." A panic gripped his chest. He called her name. No answer. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He picked up, a voice, calm but ice cold. "Ethan Cole, you should stick to stocks and servers. You're playing in places that don't belong." "To you?" Ethan's grip tightened. "Where is she?" The man laughed softly. "Let's not pretend you don't remember me. You saw my face once. I made sure of it." Then the line went dead. Ethan stood there in the quiet, fists clenched as the memories came crashing back. The scar, the pain, the rage he thought he'd left that night behind. But now he realized he hadn't just been mugged. He had been marked. And now Lena was caught in the middle. He called in a favor. One of his oldest friends, Dean, ex-detective turned private investigator. "I need everything on a man with a facial scar. Mid-40s, probably operating under different names. Start with Lena Rivers' history." Dean didn't ask questions. "You trust her?" Ethan paused. "More than I've trusted anyone." But hours later, Dean called back. His voice was tense. Double quotes, "Ethan. ... There's something you need to see." When the files arrived, Ethan's hands froze. In one photograph, from a court record buried deep in Ohio's system, he saw Lena only 16 standing, beside a man with that same scar. But what broke him wasn't the man, it was the caption. married under coercion. Record sealed due to minor's psychological trauma. And below it, witness protection was recommended. Declined by the minor. Ethan stared at the file, heart thudding like thunder. Lena didn't run from her past. She sacrificed her future to protect someone else, and now someone wanted to erase that sacrifice as he stared out the window. His jaw clenched. Lena had tried to warn him, but now it was too late to step back, because somewhere, deep inside Ethan's own company, that same man, the one with the scar, was. Hiding, watching, waiting, too. And he wasn't just after Lena anymore. He was after Ethan too. 3 days passed. No word from Lena. Ethan barely slept. Every second without her felt like he was suffocating slowly. His empire ran on autopilot. Meetings skipped, calls ignored. Nothing mattered except finding her. Then, on the 4th morning, she appeared. He was sitting alone in the bookstore, staring at the same spot where she used to stand when the bell above the door jingled. He turned on. There she was, hair damped from rain, eyes swollen, lips trembling like she had run all night just to get there. He stood so fast the chair toppled behind him. Lena. She dropped her bag and rushed to him, and then she hugged him. Tight, like she didn't know how else to say, "I'm sorry." He held her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, afraid to let go. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered, voice cracking. "Keep you safe." He pulled back just enough to see her face. "You think I care about safe?" Her lips parted, but before she could speak, he leaned in and kissed her gently, deeply. And for a moment, there was no past, no scar, no fear. Just warmth. Just them. But as they sat down together, she reached into her bag and slid a folded paper across the table. "There's something you should know." Ethan opened it. His hands went still. It was a business registration certificate. Underneath the name of one of his shell companies, listed as Koner. Was her name Lena Rivers. Listed since 4 years ago. He stared at it in disbelief. "I've never added anyone to my companies," he said. "Not without signing, vetting, everything." She nodded slowly. "He did it. Him. My husband." Ethan's eyes darkened. "Years ago, before I ran, he got involved with someone in tech. I think it was one of your former partners. When I escaped, I didn't know what he had done, but now I do. He tied me to your business. It's a way to get back into your life." Ethan leaned back, mind racing. "It was never about me," Lena whispered. "It was always about you." Then she handed him a flash drive. "I took this from his briefcase while he was asleep. It has documents, emails, a plan. He's been watching you for years, Ethan. Waiting." Ethan plugged it into his laptop. What loaded wasn't just disturbing. It was horrifying. Emails between Lena's ex and someone from Ethan's own board. Plans to crash Ethan's stocks. Use Lena as the connection to create a scandal. To take him down from the inside. And then, at the bottom of the screen, a final email. Subject: Final move. Once Ethan trusts her, I'll send the footage. Let the media eat him alive. Nobody will believe she didn't know. Ethan looked up slowly, blood draining from his face. "Footage," he said. Lena's face fell. "She didn't respond." He repeated, quieter. "What footage, Lena?" She shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "It's not what you think. Did you know he was filming us?" he asked. "All those nights we talked, laughed, ... Was he watching?" Lena stood, panicked. "I didn't know at first, I swear. He hid cameras. But when I found out, I tried to destroy them. I tried to protect you, Ethan, but his silence was louder than her words." He looked at her now, not with love, but with doubt. Not because she was guilty, but because the damage was already done. "I never lied about loving you," she whispered. But Ethan didn't answer, because deep down, he didn't know if he had just fallen in love with a woman trying to save him, or the bait meant to destroy him. Lena didn't expect him to forgive her, but she thought he would at least believe her. When she left the bookstore that night, she didn't go home. She didn't have one anymore. She wandered, alone, cold, clutching the flash drive, her last attempt to save a man who was already slipping through her fingers. Ethan stayed in the bookstore long after she was gone. Staring at the footage, there she was on the grainy video, laughing, with him, hugging him, standing too close. But in every frame, he noticed something else. Her eyes. She was never looking at the cameras. She didn't know. She really didn't know. And then came the second video. Not of Lena, of his own boardroom. Someone on his team. Mark Weller, Chief Operating Officer, trusted for years. Standing beside Lena's husband, shaking hands. That was it. He wasn't just betrayed by love. He was betrayed by family. Ethan made one call. The next morning, the world changed. Mark Weller was arrested for corporate conspiracy. Lena's ex-real name, Damian Rusk, was found hiding in a run-down motel in Jersey, caught red-handed. Fraud, extortion, illegal surveillance. It all came crashing down, but none of it mattered, because Lena was still missing. Ethan searched for days. Streets, shelters, hospitals, nothing, until librarian at a small church downtown mentioned a girl with tired eyes who asked for a place to sleep near the books. He found her curled up on a pew, hugging her knees, like the world had taken everything one last time. He walked slowly toward her. She didn't look up. "I thought you hated me," she said softly. "I never hated you," he whispered. "I just didn't trust myself to protect you." Her eyes filled again, but this time she didn't hide. Ethan sat beside her, reached into his coat, pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was a deed. "To the bookstore," he said. "It's yours now, for real." She stared at it, speechless. He continued, voice trembling. "I bought the whole building. No one can take it from you ever again. And I put something else in your name." "What?" He smiled gently. "My heart." She laughed through her tears, burying her face in his chest. "You're ridiculous. You're safe now, Lena. You always will be." She pulled back just enough to look at him. "But what if something happens again? What if the past comes back?" He cupped her cheek. "Then we face it together." And in that quiet, forgotten church, under dim lights and dusty windows, they kissed again. Not like the first time. This one was a promise. A new beginning, because love doesn't wait for perfect timing. It shows up, messy and broken, and heals everything it touches. And somewhere in the silence, the world finally made sense. She never needed a rescue. She just needed someone who wouldn't run when her past knocked on the door.